Right, five. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this show is Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. I'm on with my co host this evening, Amanda Cisco,
Hi, everyone.
and we also have our special guest who goes by the name of Lena.
Hi.
Lena, well, before we get to you, Amanda, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you're associated with this show?
Of course, Vince. I started being affiliated with this show because I did a documentary with the horror story series because I, as well as many other families, am a victim of a very unjust CPS case. And I was invited to be a part of this really amazing movement where we educate families on how we can fight back and use the resources we have to navigate the system. And we have our show every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And our focus of the show is to educate everyone on Section 1983 lawsuits, which basically means it's a federal lawsuit, usually against a social worker. And we are able to recover damages, if possible, in the event that our case was unjustly prosecuted.
Very good. Lena, tell us a little bit about yourself and how come you're on the show with us this evening.
So my story happened very recently. So we started with DHS, it's in Colorado, they call it DHS. So we started as voluntarily case. They offered to help. They offered to give I have autistic son, and he is teenager right now and pretty challenging when it's autistic and teenager is kind of twice hard.
I can't imagine.
Teenager, yeah. And I've been also had two babies, just one after another, and it's been pretty hard on me. Just started to work again after delivery and had a lot of things on my hands. And summer was coming, and they approached me and offered to help, to give my son summer camp, to give my son ABA therapy without waiting for 6 months, which is usually the wait time to get ABA therapy. And I kind of didn't want to do it. I kind of denied it first time, but they were coming and being nice and being, kind of, come on, let us help us. We're here to help. And at some point I did agree, okay, but I said, are you promise that you will give ABA therapy? And they said, yeah, we will give you ABA therapy in a couple of months. Just promise in 2 months you're gonna have it. And of course it didn't happen. Then summer started, and my son happened to be without summer camp, without anything, and it was a lot of lack of structure for him, and it's very hard for him to not have any structure. So, and at some point he got very deep depression, and I put him to the hospital, and they started to get very, very involved. And they went to the hospital, started to talk to doctor, and doctor offered to take some ADHD medication. And ADHD medication is kind of a lot of side effects. And I was very concerned about side effects, and I was displaying my concerns very loudly to because doctor was talking not to me, he was talking for some reason to caseworker instead. I mean, caseworker just maybe made a position, doctor talked to caseworker but didn't talk to me.
Lena, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
During this time that your son was in the hospital, was your son in CPS custody, or did you have still full custody of your son?
Yeah, I do have custody, yeah.
Okay, so they hadn't taken them into... Okay.
They did not, no. Thank God. So kind of they got very involved, and they spoke to doctor, and nobody addressed my concerns about side effects of medication, and I was just loudly concerned to caseworker that are concerned about side effects. So for some reason they decided that I probably will not be giving my son medication, even though my son confirmed when he was home already, my son confirmed that he was taking medication. Then he was discharged, and he had to go to ongoing psychiatrist care, which is pretty normal and standard for the medical field. Like if somebody in the hospital and then somebody go home, ongoing therapists should take over. But they started to force me kind of follow recommendation of the hospital doctor, and I was saying like it doesn't make sense to follow hospital doctor recommendation because now we have another doctor who's responsible for his care. But caseworker is so ignorant. He didn't want to hear me. He probably just didn't understand what I'm talking about. At some point they just called me, and his supervisor was yelling at me, not talking, just yelling and saying like, we filing case against you for medical neglect. And I'm like, what medical neglect? And they were just like, oh, we suspect you're not giving medication to your son. I mean, like, but he confirmed that he's taking medication. Why you suspect it? Like, how you suspect it and why? And that's kind of happened. So they filed a case, emergency case. I got this email copy of petition in the night before emergency hearing. They did not request to take my children from me, but they changed my permanent custody to temporary custody. They request for that. And in the court, everything happened kind of very weirdly because I didn't know what to expect. And I got my court-appointed attorney, and she was, I don't know, I said that I am not agree about temporary custody, but she kept silent. And I was thinking, like I said here, I want to object this temporary custody point, but she did not sound anything. She just skipped it. A judge granted everything they requested, everything at all, even though when we object some points, and she did not, in the order, she did not mention any objections. So it was kind of very weird, and also my court-appointed attorney, I asked her to appeal, and she never appealed. So and we missed deadline for appeal, and then I found a private attorney. And she started to work with me, but because a deadline was missing, and she said something that this first order, it's kind of doesn't worth to appeal. It's appealable, but not kind of, because it's not final decision, so it's kind of maybe not worth to appeal. And because we already missed deadline, it's kind of another point to not appeal it, because it's going to be harder to appeal it. So right now, it's a little bit, so my attorney, she had managed to talk to DHS and managed to guardian ad litem, and she managed to kind of make them agree to probably go back to voluntarily case, because like, I don't know, they certainly doesn't have anything on me. I mean, there is nothing I did wrong, nothing, like no evidence, zero. They just like filed the case, and even in petition it stated like that they suspect that I didn't give my son medication. I mean, they suspect that I will not give my son medication because I sound concerned about side effects. And in the same petition it says that Artem, my son confirmed. My son confirmed that so he was taking medication, which is kind of doesn't make any sense. And they also put on petition that I have some patterns to not follow, even though I was following everything they were telling me. And I mean, I don't understand what is a thing about patterns not following, like how you can sue somebody for patterns.
Vince, have you ever heard anything like that? Pattern to not follow.
No, I have not.
And she's been completely compliant with doctor's orders, service plans.
Is the child in your custody?
Yeah, my children in my custody, but they changed my it's to temporary custody, and it's kind of.
I didn't hear what you said.
They changed it. They request that my custody now is temporary. So like legally it's temporary custody. It's not like. So it's kind of, I believe, some kind of limitations, which I don't know which is it. So like before, it's kind of a probably. I have probably some obligations to report or discuss with DHS about my children, and I have 3 dependent in my care. So it's 2 babies and my teenager, and they put to the case all of them. And they trying to justify that if my son will be behaving kind of, even though there is no evidence he hurt anyone, will try to one.
Are you, are you, are you bringing a lawsuit right now against the social worker?
Not right now. Right now, I want to first of all work on my case. First of all, this is the most important issue, I think. And I want to thank you for some. I remember somewhere in a show I heard you saying you should not be trying to be right. First of all, you should be trying to get your kids safe and think about safety of your children. So I want to focus first of all on safety of my children, and they're certainly safe with me. And first of all, I want to just focus on getting DHS out of our life.
Hey, Vince.
Yeah.
Is it not a parent's constitutional right to make medical decisions over their children?
Unless they're a dependent of the court and they've lost that right, to someone in the court system, like a GAL or a minor's attorney or the social worker, the agencies themselves. But her child is with her, so I would assume that she still has the right to make medical decisions.
Yeah, but they kind of limited me. So
How?
Yeah,
How did they limit?
They said they filed a suit case for medical neglect, suspecting that I will not be giving my son medication, even though everything confirms that I was giving the medication.
Did you have a trial yet?
No.
How long has your case been open?
Right now it's 2 months almost.
So you want to make sure when you have your trial that you and your attorney subpoena the medical records and the doctors to come to court to testify, to make sure that the judge knows that you haven't missed any appointments and there's no medical neglect.
That's right.
Okay, but it's important that you and your attorney subpoena the medical records and the doctors.
Yeah, I already got medical records, yeah.
Okay, but the medical, you don't have to tell me what state you're in, but in California, if you just show up with medical records, they may not be admissible.
Okay.
That's why I said you have to subpoena in the medical records.
In the medical records, okay.
And in California, you would have to bring in the custodian of record, or the custodian of record would have to sign a declaration saying certain things. If you just show up with pieces of paper, then you say, hey, this is the medical record.
Okay.
Technically and theoretically, someone could object and keep the medical records out.
Wow.
And then your proof of not missing any appointments is out the door. It's out the window.
How's it possible?
I'm sorry?
How is it possible? They have all rights and I have no even opportunity to defend myself.
And also, Vince, how can they charge her with medical neglect when she's complied with everything that the doctors and social workers asked her to do? And how can she be accused of a pattern? What was it, Nina?
Pattern to not follow.
A pattern to not follow when all she did was voice her concerns about the obvious side effects that her child was experiencing on the medication. That I don't understand.
Well, that's one of those questions, $64 questions. How can a social worker do anything?
Yep.
They're given, the power under the law to do what they think is best. Now, in many cases, what they think and what you think as a parent, it's 180 degrees apart.
Yep.
But they have the right to make allegations and to try to prove it in a court of law, just like the guest has the right to defend herself. But she wants to make sure that she and her attorney are following all the rules,
Okay.
the evidentiary rules, in terms of witnesses and in terms of documents. Okay, because I want to say this example again. Ma'am, if you show up in court with the medical records yourself or your attorney, there is a possibility that they will not be admitted into evidence.
Okay.
Therefore, the judge won't consider the medical records. Medical records are introduced into evidence, at least in California and probably in most states, a very specific and certain way, through a custodian of record or the custodian of record declaration, which is the result of something called a subpoena ducis tecum, meaning subpoenaing documents. Okay? So you
Okay.
want to make sure that you have that right. And then, you know, I always subpoena doctors to come to court. They get very busy and sometimes they have excuses. You know, every once in a while, I get a feeling that they're not going to come just because, they don't want to come. Who wants to stop a busy practice and come testify or sit around at your courthouse and testify, when it's their turn to testify? Probably no one. So you got to have that subpoena. You got to have the proof of service showing that they were subpoenaed and they will be brought in, by the sheriffs if they don't show up to testify.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. When is your trial?
Right now, we're trying to negotiate to go back to voluntarily case because
Okay.
it's an easier way to do right now for me.
Mhm.
It's cheaper, like for me, because trial is very expensive.
Did you hire your own lawyer or do you have a court appointed?
Yeah, I hired my own because
Okay.
I didn't get any help from court appointed attorney. It was
So, they have that in California, the voluntary, case. They dismiss the case in court and they just go by way of voluntary services, and usually they would have you take some type of service like parenting class or counseling or something to make sure that the child is well taken care of. You probably, if you were in California in most counties, you probably would have a good chance of getting that only because your child is with you. Right? The child's not in foster care. So either they made the decision early on or the judge made the decision early on that the child shouldn't be removed from your care and custody.
I didn't do anything.
Right. Well, I believe you. The problem is they say you did.
That's right.
Right.
So, they didn't say I did. They said I can do. I might do. Like I maybe will do. So
right.
This is
So they can get you.
Sense.
They can get you if you've done something affirmatively,
like
or
I did,
if they prove that you are a risk.
Because I'm concerned about side effects. I don't know.
Interestingly enough, I met with a lady today, right before the show, as a matter of fact, and this is her story. Her son, they thought, had a brain tumor, and a hospital was ordering MRIs after MRIs after MRIs. Well, the mother was concerned about the side effects of so many MRIs and went and hired 2 other experts. And those experts, and I saw one of the letters, wrote letters apparently to the hospital and saying, don't give this kid any more MRIs because of the condition the child had. Well, they wanted to give the child some more MRIs, and they told the mother, you have to sign the consent, and she refused. Now, here's where it gets kind of interesting. The hospital reported the mother to CPS, and allegedly the CPS the CPS social worker told the mother, if you don't sign the consent, I'm going to take away all of your other children, right, and put them in foster care, and we're going to start a case, on them and the child that needs the medical attention.
This is threat.
So she signed the consent. The child went under the MRI.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm no doctor, but the child came out severely burned on his limbs and his face, and the mother has pictures of all of this, the before and after. And I think that day or the next day, the child died.
Oh my God.
And the mother contacted her two second and third opinion doctors who didn't even know each other, and they both give the opinion that the MRIs were the substantial cause of the death of this child.
Hey, Vince, how old was the child, if you don't mind me asking?
5 years old.
I heard it's how many MRIs he got.
So the reason why I'm telling you the story is because the mother didn't want to sign or question. She did more than question. She said, look, I'm not going to sign it. I got these two other experts telling me my kid with this disease or this medical condition should not have any more MRIs.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hospital calls CPS. CPS threatens her, allegedly. She signs it, and within, a day, the child is dead. And the two experts are giving giving the mother the opinion. I haven't talked to them yet, but in writing, in letters that I read, that the MRI, the last MRI, was the substantial cause.
Because of it. That's crazy.
It's unbelievable. It literally breaks my heart to hear stories like that.
But
Hey, Vince, he froze up. Just give it a second.
yeah, I mean, I think that mothers always have intuition what to do for the child and what not to do for the child. I think every mother just have this feeling like what is right and what is wrong.
But Lena, what's really unfortunate, the mistake like lots of parents make who haven't dealt with social services or CPS before is that when they first get involved, and they promise all these things like they did to you, you automatically think that, oh, they have our best interests at heart. Like, okay, they're really going to help us. In my personal experience, and again, I'm not a licensed attorney, so I'm not stating my opinion on anything regarding legal advice, but, oftentimes from the stories I've heard and the things that I've experienced and seen, it couldn't be further from the truth. And it's
just a hook.
Yeah.
Just a hook. That's very unfortunate.
And it's scary. It's scary.
That's how they approach you. They trying to hook you, and then they just.
Exactly.
It's sad. It's very sad because services was kind of built to do the good, and they doing just a lot of bad. And I kind of guessing that maybe because it's kind of more convenient for them to sit in the courtrooms instead of going to real problematic families and try to help real children who need help.
I don't know if you knew this, but the social workers actually get paid. Like the city gets paid by the federal government to take children away from their families.
Yeah, I know, pretty much. I mean, yeah, they're getting paid very well, and it's another factor. But I mean,
the good news is that your kids are still in your custody. It could be a lot worse. I talked to a lot of people who have had their kids removed for a long period of time, and or a lot of them even have never seen their kids since they were removed. And that's it's so heartbreaking to hear those stories.
Yeah, I mean, like the feeling when you're having a case like that, even like I'm very grateful that my children with me, and it's just like having a gun under your head, like right. It's kind of like, I don't know, and they just they threatening you with the most important thing in your life. Yeah, and they threatening you with this. It's just hard to stay calm, but I think it's very important to try to stay calm because this is the only way to get out of this.
Right. Well, you're doing very good, and I commend you for that. Okay, let me see where Vince went. Did you want to keep telling us about your case while we're live?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's kind of, I do hope for the good resolution about if I will not be limited and if I will have time. And because the civil rights case, attorney cost a lot too. So, and you never know the result. Do you think like there is a ground for civil rights suit in my case?
I personally cannot answer that question because I'm not licensed to practice law. That would be a great question for Vince, especially if you're interested in filing a civil rights lawsuit.
I mean, yeah, once I will out of this, I'm thinking about it, but I know it costs a lot, even filing the case, and without attorney, it's kind of, I don't know if it's like, because like there is always a strategy to win the battle, like most important battle first, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, this is first of all to get this.
I do know that filing a civil rights 1983 case in federal court is several $100s just to file the initial pleading.
Yeah, but I mean to get an attorney, like, and probably you need an attorney for this.
Welcome back, Vince.
Sorry, ladies, I was having some technical difficulties.
That's okay. Mina had a question.
I heard it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could see and hear you guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay, she said, do I think she has a civil rights case? Now, here's the thing. It sounds like you might, but I'd have to review more in detail what has happened, what has said, etc., etc. Remember, we've been on this call or on this show for less than 30 minutes. I've never met you before, right? I don't know if you have a good case. Let's put it like this. You have a case, all right? I can say that. In my opinion, the question becomes, well, how good is it? Am I going to win? Am I going to win $100, $1 million, $10,000? I don't know, because we haven't gotten any specifics. Before I had the technical difficulties this evening, I was telling you about the woman that came into the office today, right before the show. I had talked to her on the phone, but I had to meet with her to go over her documents, the evidence that she had, the pictures, before I can say, yeah, I think you have a really good case. I think these doctors kind of screwed up. Unfortunately, it caused the death of her child. But I had to meet her. I had to go over the documents. I had to go over the evidence she had. I mean, if I were to opine something like that, you and I would probably have to have an hour conversation where we're sharing documents, via the internet, and I'm asking you questions to give you a full evaluation. If everything that you say is true and you haven't missed any medical appointments, right? And somebody screwed up, you still have to prove some type of, at least if it was in California, some type of malicious or fraudulent acts by the social workers. Remember, social workers that screw up and it's just negligence because they were just careless or made a mistake, an honest mistake, they have, qualified immunity, at least in California. And I would guess in other states as well. So you can't just sue a social worker for screwing up. I mean, they have to do something at least, reckless and malicious in their acts. So, for example, a lot of times there are lawsuits. Here's the big three for lawsuits against social workers. Number one, they take your child without a warrant. Okay, that's a Fourth Amendment violation to the United States Constitution. And their only defense is they had exigent circumstances, which is really difficult for them to prove, in my opinion, in most situations.
Yeah, most judges sign off on it without looking at any evidence whatsoever. Isn't that true?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
But like with exigent circumstances, when these social workers try to present these exigent circumstances to judges, isn't it true that most of them sign off without looking at their evidence at all?
I wouldn't say they don't look at the evidence. I have no proof of that. I'm not
I
with
can't
judges
say.
when they sign it, right? I mean, you'd have to assume that they've read it and considered it.
Sometimes it feels like that. Sometimes.
But that doesn't mean that they didn't read it. You have to be very, I was telling this to this mother tonight. You have to be very careful about what you say and how you say it. We're not having a conversation among friends and drinking beer. We're talking about a lawsuit, right? It's very specific. Give you an example. I asked her a question today. It was a yes or no question. And she went on for about 5 minutes telling me something. And I said, hey, I want to be respectful, but we're going to be in the legal arena. If I ask you a question that's yes or no, the answer is yes or no. Don't give me that explanation that you feel compelled to give me. Right? So you got to be very specific.
Yeah,
Do judges read the affidavits for issuing warrants? I assume they do. I have no proof otherwise. I've never been in a judge's chambers when he was about to sign a warrant. No one's ever invited me in the chambers, so I'm going to assume that they did. They're lawyers and judges and judicial officers. Just because, man, I was telling Georgette this the other night. Just because a judge does something that you disagree with, that doesn't mean the judge is wrong. Doesn't mean that at all. As a matter of fact, the judge gets to decide conflicts of facts and law.
I'm covering that right now in my paralegal classes.
So, listen, in my almost 35 years as an attorney, in many cases, a judge will decide something that I disagree with. But I'm not wearing the black robe. That's not my job. Judges get to decide what the truth is. We've given them that power. Now, you might say, but reality is something different. Yeah, reality could be different. But in our system of justice, we've given them the final word.
Vince, what is that quote that you like to say about 95% of the law? I really like that one.
Oh, when you talk about justice, you have your own idea of justice. It's usually based upon your beliefs, your experiences, and what people have told you. But the real justice is based upon statutes, appellate cases, and rules. Now, there's an intersection, between the two. But that intersection is a very small sliver, about 5%. So about 5% of what you believe is justice is true. But we're like all human beings. If we think we know a little bit about something, we know everything about it. And that's not true. So generally speaking, you know about 5%. That means you're 95% wrong. 5% right, 95% wrong. Being 95% wrong, what do you think the odds are of you winning a case? Not very good. I'm not a statistical genius. I had to take statistics in high school and college. But you can figure that out just mathematically. And I can tell you that, the stats and the probabilities are going to be against you. So that's why I tell people, you probably should confer with a lawyer. Now, our guest probably did something smart. She went and got an attorney who was working with her, and it sounds like the attorney may get the case dismissed on a voluntary basis. By the way, that's a great outcome. That's a great outcome.
Least,
Yeah.
Least
So, so many people, people believe that they know what the law is, or what it should be at least. And then they make decisions and strategies against it. I spoke to a grandmother today, and she told me her story. I listened to it, maybe 20, 25 minutes. And then she asked me a question. And before I could answer the question, she answered the question. And I said, well, what makes you say that? And she said, well, it's just what I feel is right. And I said, well, you know what? I'm sorry to tell you, but you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. And if you go into court with that strategy, you're probably not going to win. So it's hard sometimes to tell people that what they've been thinking about for weeks or months or years, that they've been thinking the wrong thing.
So Vince, I apologize for getting you sidetracked, but you said you had 3 things that you wanted to point out.
3, really?
If I heard correctly.
I don't
the
remember.
first thing was taking. Oh, okay. So you said there are 3 things typically that you can sue a social worker for. Okay.
Okay, I got it.
Number
So
one,
number
taking a child without a warrant.
Yeah. You detain my child without a warrant or exigent circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, by the way, they don't have immunity for that. They have immunity once the case is filed. Okay? So usually what happens is they take your kid, then they file the case. That starts the qualified immunity, and then they start doing things.
I never knew that.
Okay, so number 1 was the detaining the child without a warrant. And by the way, that happens all over the country every day. I get calls from people every day. And in some places in our country, they do that like the Fourth Amendment doesn't exist or doesn't apply to them. And in my opinion, that's wrong. At least in my Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in the Western United States, it's wrong. You need a warrant, or you need exigent circumstances. Number 2, the number 2 way social workers are generally sued successfully is they've intentionally misrepresented facts or lied.
Okay.
Either in their social worker reports or on the witness stand.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can imagine how hard it is to get a social worker to admit that they lied. So you have to prove it. Okay.
So,
There are different ways that you can do this. It's not impossible, but it's not easy either. This is not an auto accident. Social worker didn't run into the back of you at the intersection while you were stopped for the red light. That's easy. This is a civil rights case under 42 U.S.C. 1983. So that's the second way. The third way that you're usually going to be able to sue a social worker is if your child was abused in foster care, which happens all too frequently. And I get the feeling sometimes we want to kind of ignore that because that means the system isn't working right. We removed a child from a parent who might, be a risk to the child, and then we put them in a place where they're actually abused. And they can be abused by another foster parent. They can be abused by other children that are in the home that are foster children. Some of these foster children have real significant problems, right? Or they could be a child or a relative of the foster parent. Unfortunately, it happens too many times. I told this story again, and I've told this story before, and I want to tell you again. Several years ago, I was in a case where my client, we had gotten her son home, and we wanted to get her daughter home, who was in a group home, which is basically kind of a foster care setting. And they were alleging, the social workers were alleging that my client couldn't take care of her child, that she was, an ex-drug addict and, had participated in domestic violence. But my client had been clean almost 6 or 7 months, hence she got her son back. And the person that she was involved with in domestic violence with, she had broken up with him months before. But they still kept the girl in the group home. Well, we came to court one day, and the minor's attorney and my client tells me that the child is being abused in the group home by the other girls, the other teenagers in the group home. The child was Caucasian, was white, and she was placed in a group home that was predominantly African American and Latinx. And they were beating her up. They were stealing her belongings, like her Walkman, or, her earphones and her clothes, her tennis shoes, that type of thing. And I remember sitting in the judge's chambers, and we were talking about this, and the judge says, at this time, the judge was kind of a new judge to juvenile dependency. And she says, well, maybe I should be checking out where I place these children. And, I kind of chuckled to myself. And I thought, if you only knew. Because early on in my career, I used to represent foster parents when they were accused of abuse. Well, their cases are administrative cases in a completely different judicial setting, a different building. It's an administrative case. And the people in the CPS court, they don't know what happens in that court about whether a foster parent really abused a child or not. And there was a lot of cases out there of foster parents in California allegedly abusing a child. Early in my career, I represented a foster parent that caused the death of a child. Forget abuse. She caused the death of a child. Quite naturally, she lost her foster license, But you see, these things do happen in foster care. And every once in a while, I hear about a case where, a kid is killed in foster care. Killed. Forget physically abused, forget emotionally abused, forget sexually abused. And I hear about that every once in a while.
I mean, when it's parent, it's natural, it's instinct to care for the child, to protect the child. It's very rarely when parent doesn't have this instinct, right? But I think every parent, they kind of, it's just like it's biology for people to protect their children.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things I noticed, now, let me say this. There are some great foster parents out there. There are. I'm not going to deny that. But there are a lot of not so great foster parents out there. And, if you're a foster parent, you get paid good. You pay good money to take care of kids.
How much would you say on average, Vince?
$1,000
per child.
Per child, and that's
but
just
if you get them diagnosed with a psychological disorder and put on medication.
It can go $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per month. Listen. In my career, I've met people that are "quote unquote" professional foster parents. They never said this to me, but I always got the impression, oh, maybe they're just doing this for the dollar. I don't know. It's just the impression that I would get sometimes.
I mean, and there is sometimes a situation when there is unsafe situation for children, people who, parents who really abuse children, but it's kind of so much parents who are totally innocent.
Right. In California, they did when I guess Arnold Schwarzenegger was first governor, he had the Hoover Commission do an investigation on the foster care system. And
bless his soul.
They concluded that the financial incentives were in the wrong place.
Okay, they stopped.
In other words, the incentives for the county are take the kid away from the parent and put it in foster care. Now, A lot of people don't believe that. And I welcome them to Google and read that Hoover Commission report. You know, a lot of us in the CPS system don't really know about the money that's involved. And it's a lot of money. I think last time I looked it up, federal wise, was $80 billion nationwide. 80 billion. If you started counting right now, you couldn't count to a billion before you die. And it's 80 billion.
It's scary to think about it. It's all about money.
Well, here's the bad thing. You know, we live in America. It's a capitalistic society. What does that mean? Money. That means money.
Vincent, can I ask you a question? You mentioned this woman who lost her child because CPS forced her to do this medical procedure. How parents can defend themselves if CPS forcing you to do something which you don't feel right for your child? For example, if they will make me to do something else for my son, and
Right.
it will be dangerous from my point of view because I am his mother. I know his medical history. I know everything. I know him from the birth. So, and they come in here, they don't know anything. They're not doctors. They don't have medical education. They don't have even children sometimes. They're not parents. So, like, and they're forcing me to do something just because they can, just because they want to. Like, and how can I protect? How like what I can put against it?
Okay. That's a great question. The answer I'm going to give you, though, I'm not sure you're going to really like. The answer is you better go talk to an attorney. Now, this particular woman didn't talk to an attorney. Instead, she got two other doctors who were unrelated to examine the child and review the medical records. And they wrote letters that were given to the hospital that said, don't give this kid any more MRIs because of blah, 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 blah. She thought that was enough to protect herself and her child. She was wrong. And unfortunately, her child's no longer with us. So, you know, I hate to tell you this because I'm an attorney. But, you know, attorneys exist in this system supposedly to help people protect their rights. Because you don't know the law. You don't know how to protect your rights. You think you do. Right?
No, I don't think so.
The other day, some social workers wanted to interview my client at a CFT meeting, and I told her I wouldn't do it unless, you know, I'm there. Me personally there. And my client said, oh, great, no problem. She tells the social worker this in an email. Initially, the social worker says, oh, okay, Mr. Davis can join us on the Zoom meeting. And then changes her mind. My client doesn't tell me, and my client participates in the meeting. And I realize the meeting's already started, and I text her, and I say to her, I said, well, what are you doing the meeting without me? She said, oh, they told me I would look bad if I didn't do the meeting.
They do.
Yeah. Now this is a lady that has alleged that the social worker has misquoted her, has said things about her action and her conduct that's not true. So just because they said we're going to make you look bad, she went ahead and didn't follow my advice.
You know, I heard this saying a long time ago, and it goes something like, there are two people in this world that you should never, ever lie to, and that is your doctor and your lawyer. Have you heard that one?
Yeah. But you see, attorneys get a bad name. You know, attorneys cost money. That's the problem. People don't want to necessarily spend money. people always remember that one person who didn't have an attorney who won a case. That's a 1%er. You want to go for the 1%er? Probably not. And
Sometimes
then
yeah.
even if you don't want to hire an attorney, like our guest did, use the court-appointed attorney. Someone in my office just today, asked me to write a series of emails to social workers and to their court-appointed attorneys throughout the case. Right? And I said, well, why would I do that? Every case is different. And they said, well, at least the parent will have these letters as a template or guideline in some kind of book where they can always send the letter or send the email and have record of this. I tell a lot of people, Amanda, I think you should email the social worker, blah, blah, blah. Right?
Right. I mean, you shouldn't wait for the case parties to contact you because they're not going to.
But you know what? I would guess about 50% of the people don't do that. They don't send the email. Now, there could be a lot of reasons. They forgot, too much work to turn on the computer, whatever.
I mean, we're talking about our children, some of the most important things in our lives. So.
Yeah, but you know how people are. Even me. My doctor told me something a few years ago and I didn't pay attention to it. And I'm no doctor. So people do, against what they're advised all the time.
Yeah.
So, did you have another question for me? You look like you wanted to ask me another question.
No, I was just thinking, I just wanted to share something that to other parents. It's very hard to stay calm in situations when somebody really you feel attacking you, but it's very important to stay calm because what my feelings, it's just when I see caseworkers, I don't know, very, very, very mixed feelings, but I'm trying to smile. I'm trying to stay calm and say as little as possible. Yes, thank you. No, thank you.
Vince, I think Lena's doing an amazing job with that.
And I think it's, I was trying to picking up some negotiation techniques, but I mean, I think it's very important, how you present yourself. It's essential because if they feel your weakness, they're gonna attack you. It's just I don't know, just
social workers are highly trained at their job. A lot of people think they're just,
Yeah. You're just thinking they're regular people who you can talk to, right? Explain your concerns or how they present themselves.
And remember also, when you're going through these cases and having your kids removed or whatever the circumstances are, I know this sounds counterproductive, but remember that self-care is not selfish. It can be hard to think about sometimes, because I myself have felt during the case that, I don't want to take care of myself. I should be worried about my kids instead. How can I be happy without them? But I learned from experience that self-care is paramount to getting through these cases. Self-care is not selfish.
Yeah, you should I don't know, just make your mind up to and try to just put in your head the best and think and just to affirm everything that it's hard. I mean, but I mean you should be trying to think about positive outcome, the best positive outcome, and you use whatever you use to support. Use your friend, call your friends, and just to stay strong because if they see you weak and if they see you're do not make mistake because if you start to stress too much and you can make more mistakes. and this is that can go even worse, and it's impossible to stay calm in this situation. It's just impossible. But that's the most important thing to do it.
I agree.
Even though you want to be right, but it's kind of the feeling, like emotion, like you understand you've been treated like very badly, and you want to prove that you're right, that you know that it's true. But I really like Vincent said that you need to focus on the goal, not on being right here, because this is too important. And I don't know.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And you're doing an amazing job from what I can see.
Trying to.
Vince?
Well, I was wondering if she had any other questions for us about her case or about her upcoming civil rights lawsuit.
I'm just thinking about what would you suggest, like when it will come back, if like hopefully it will come back to voluntarily case. What would you suggest to be alert about, and how to behave to like what risks here for having voluntarily case?
Well, for you, your case is kind of different from most people in that, number one, you have your child in your home.
Thank God, yeah.
Number two, you took it upon yourself and took the initiative to get a private attorney when allegedly your court-appointed attorney wasn't helping you.
Yeah.
That's not most of the people that we talk to, right?
Because I was listening to you.
Huh?
Because I was listening to your show.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you listened. Continue to work with your attorney and do what he or she advises. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. If your attorney says, make a right-hand turn here, your response should be, okay, I'll make the right-hand turn, but can you tell me why we're going right and not left or not straight ahead? Okay? Let the attorney know that, you appreciate his or her advice, that you're going to follow it, but you just want to know why. So it'll give you the peace of mind.
Okay.
Attorneys are people. And depending on how you talk to them and what you say will determine usually how they're going to react to you, right? And what they're going to think about you.
Vince, what did you say were the two main things that attorneys look for when taking on a case? Not just the facts, but what else?
The client.
Yeah.
What kind of person is the client? I had that lady come into the office today because I wanted to see what kind of client or witness she's going to be on the witness stand. Over my almost 35 years, I've come across people with, very good cases, but they're just, they're not going to do well in the courtroom.
It's hard.
Yeah, because it's, most clients are 35 to 40 years old, and how are you going to change them as a person to do well in court? But they've been, developing over 35 to 40 years. How are you going to change it in a few months? It's hard, and, some clients think, oh, just because that they hired you or hired me, that I'm going to wave a magic wand and I don't have to do anything really, any work on a case. I talked to a woman the other day, she wanted to hire me, and she said, oh, this should be easy for you. And I said, you're kidding, right? She goes, no. This is what I think, I, the client, think. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. You've never done one of these cases. You don't know what the law is. You don't know what you have to prove. You don't know how to prove it. You just think this is going to be easy. I mean, these cases take a lot of thought and a lot of work.
And a lot of money. The process is very expensive.
And the social workers aren't just going to lay down because you went and got a private attorney. They don't care. If you sue a social worker, by the way, guess who pays for it? The county. Nothing comes out of the social worker's pocket. So they don't care. You want to sue me? Go right ahead.
That's sad.
There was a case in Orange County where the social workers were sued. The family won the case, several millions of dollars. The county appealed it. They lost the first appeal. Then they appealed it again. They lost the second appeal, and then they finally, had to pay millions of dollars to this family. They interviewed someone from Orange County. I won't say who it is, but they interviewed someone from Orange County, and they said something to the effect that if they had it to do it all over again, they do it the same way. Now, the reason why they say that is because it ain't their money they're paying out. They can, quote unquote, afford to stand on principle. But believe me, if it was coming out of his or her pocket, the millions of dollars, they wouldn't do it the same way again. They'd learn that lesson. And that's why we have these types of systems and lawsuits, right? To me, saying that is kind of arrogant or stupid, or a little of both. You lose a multi-million-dollar lawsuit and you say, we would do the same thing over again?
Yeah, it's not their money.
And they sometimes, I'm not saying this particular county, but sometimes you get the feeling social workers do things. And I actually think that they do things sometimes because they actually think that they are protecting the child. So if your rights have to be trampled on, so sad, too bad. And then forget about the fact that they don't like you. Not every case, but a lot of cases where people don't have their children or they want to file a lawsuit, they have a personality conflict with the social worker.
I think it's most common things.
Yeah. Just like everything in life. Hey, listen, Lena, we have reached our time limit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to sign off and end this discussion.
Thank you so much.
First of all, Lena,
I
want to thank you for being a guest and sharing with us tonight. You asked some very insightful questions and you made some very insightful statements. I have a feeling things are going to work out well for you in your CPS case and perhaps even in a civil rights case. Amanda, thank you again for co-hosting this evening.
My pleasure.
I appreciate you. Even though sometimes we don't agree on certain things in the show, I still appreciate you. I want to remind everyone that we're scheduled to do a brand new show tomorrow at 7. It's going to be called The Real Victims of CPS, which are the children, right?
And who was hosting that show, Vince?
Brian Hamilton.
Therapist, I believe, right?
Right, Brian Hamilton. And, what we're hoping to get is people that were former foster parents and, former foster children to come on and share their stories with us. I think you're going to be very surprised by what these people have to say about their experiences in foster care. So we hope to start that tomorrow. And don't forget our radio show on 790 KABC Radio in Los Angeles every Saturday from 7 to 10 at 7 p.m. Pacific time. This Saturday, although we're going to be on, because of USC football preemption, we're going to be on from 3 to 5, and then on Sunday from 10 to 11 p.m.
So they kind of broke up the show. 2 hours on Saturday afternoon and 1 hour on Sunday night. Actually, I think the one on Sunday night is not going to be live. It's going to be the best of The Secret How to Fight CPS and Win. You can also listen to that radio show at kabc.com, and you can also view it on these social media sites on Facebook and YouTube because we try to live stream it as well. Although I might not be able to live stream anymore on YouTube. I'm getting copyright claims because in the show there's music, and YouTube is saying, well, maybe you don't have the right to play that music. So maybe I won't be able to do that, although I'm challenging one of those claims right now. But anyway, Lisa, again, thank you. And Amanda, thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. Good night. We'll see you hopefully tomorrow at 7 p.m. on the new show.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you for everything you did. Bye.